Welcome back to the Labor Forum here on WRFG 89.3 FM, your station for progressive information. And we are so happy to welcome back to our program Yvonne Robinson. She is the Secretary-Treasurer of the state AFL-CIO, and that stands for American Federation of Labor Congress of Industrial Organizations, which is the sort of national confederation of labor unions, many of the labor unions here in the United States. And each state has its own AFL-CIO organization, and she is the Secretary-Treasurer of that for how long? A year?
40 years.
Oh my goodness.
40 years.
So time flies. Anyway, Yvonne has been on this program before, and we're really happy that she's here to discuss some pending legislation that is being discussed. And it's an issue that we've had programs about before, and it's this word that kind of doesn't make any sense sort of all by itself. It's called misclassification. But if you were listening to the story about the restaurant workers, that was it. The kitchen staff was misclassified so that they technically, when they're misclassified, aren't eligible for a number of benefits, including overtime. So what is happening in so many industries, and we're going to get to all of them, is how bosses call workers contract workers, independent workers, all kinds of names, and essentially means they then don't have to pay Social Security out of their wages, they don't pay into the unemployment, they don't provide workers' comp, and on and on. So, I sort of explained it, didn't I?
You did a really good job. I mean, I was like, okay, what's left to say?
All right, well, but here's what's left to say. All right, so why is this a big deal here in Georgia?
Well, we look at it a lot of ways. One way is that workers are being mistreated. They are being gypped out of their unemployment. When workers get laid off, they are not eligible for unemployment because the employer hasn't paid into the unemployment system. When they want to go and seek other repercussions or whatever, refunds, they can't get it because the employer hasn't paid taxes, employment taxes, and that employee is responsible for those taxes. So if you're making $10 an hour, but you've got to pay the employment taxes and the insurance, the employee insurance, you're really not making a minimum wage. And so it's very, very important. It has happened many times in the building trades movement, but we see it more and more now in all of the areas of employment. And many employers are doing the right thing, and some of the employers are not, and so we're all having to pay for it. Because if our workers, and I say workers, I don't say union members, I say workers, because this is about workers, not just labor union folks, can't pay for food, then they're going to get public assistance. So that is putting more strain on the community, because these big employers who are making big money off of these employees, the work that they do, are not paying their fair share in taxes. So this is really a Georgia revenue issue, because we don't have enough money to fund the schools, we don't have enough money to do other things. This is a way to make employers pay their fair share, and to allow workers to have a wage that they can take care of their families. We don't want $1 million, we just want money to take care of our families.
So Yvonne, so then the number of kinds of jobs that more and more are called independent workers or independent contract workers, could you describe some of the ones that perhaps our listeners wouldn't think of?
Your public health workers, workers that go into the home and take care of your families, or may take care of your children, and sometimes even like daycare workers, are, because they're independent contractors. That's what they're called, independent contractors. Many times people think, oh, well, they have their own business. Well, many of these people are working like right next to your AT&T worker, your telephone worker, who's going to put the wires up for your phones or your TVs. And there's these independent contractors who are being paid probably maybe $10 an hour. That sounds good, but when you have to pay your employment
Social
taxes out, your social security taxes out, then it's not even a living wage. It's not even a minimum wage. And it's not fair. It's not fair to those folks that are working there doing that job. It's not fair to the folks who are working alongside those folks that we're doing the same job. But when we get through bringing all our money in, it's not even a living wage to send my child to school or to buy groceries to put on the table, just simple groceries to put on the table. We spoke to folks who own trucks, and you think, well, you own your own truck, you make enough money, but you have to pay the insurance on the trucks. You have to, if anything happens to that load, you're responsible for it. You have to pay some type of workers' comp insurance on those trucks for yourself, because the employer who's employing you does not do that. And by the time you bring home your paycheck, as I said, it may be $5 an hour.
Right, and we've had the port drivers in Savannah. And this is an interesting thing, because a lot of people, when they see all the trucks on the highways or see trucks anywhere, they oftentimes will see a company logo on the truck, and they think that person is employed by that company and has a set wage and has benefits, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think the issue is that most of these employers, the reason there's some possibility of legislation and there's been court victories is because they set the hours, they set the regulations, they may have to wear uniforms. There's all kinds of things that what you would consider, this is an employer, this is a boss telling me when to come, when to go, where to go, how to go.
And if I don't, I'm disciplined. I mean,
Right.
as an independent contractor, if I decide not to take the job, then I'm not disciplined for that. But these folks are disciplined. They're told when to, how to, and where to. And there's a whole test that's a nationwide test that says what an independent contractor is, what he is actual. And that is not what's happening here in the home health care field, in the truck driving field, even in the film industry, which is building, it's growing so fast here. And folks are working 9, 10, 12, 13 hours and not getting the overtime they don't fall under the Labor Standards Act because they're considered an independent contractor, which they are not by law, by the law. And one of the big things that has happened, Diane, in this past session at the legislature, we were able to get, not through policy, but just by talking to legislators and talking to the Department of Labor, to get a way that people can even report that they are working as a misclassified worker. Prior to, there was no way for a worker to find out whether they were a misclassified worker until they went to the unemployment office and were turned down. So we have been working with the state, legislators on both sides, the House, the Senate, Democrats, Republicans, to try to get language that can help set the pace. And one of the reasons it's of interest, many of our legislators are business owners who are paying their way. And so it's not fair if you don't pay your way and that you're mistreating workers. And we have worked until we are at a point, we had language, and it did not get passed at the Capitol this year, but we're going to still continue to work on it. But they did agree, the Senate agreed to set up a Senate committee. And so we have had workers go around the state testifying to what the impact is on them and their families. Not only workers, but employers. We've had some employers who come in and say, look, it's hard for us to keep employees because, they look at the upfront pay, but they're not looking at the back pay, the pay of what we're paying into their unemployment. And so it's hard for us to keep those employees, and we're trying to do the right thing. We want everybody to do the right thing.
Well, we've had stagehands, members of IATSE in here. And one of the things they've talked about is the kind of bookkeeping that an average worker has to do who is considered an independent contractor. So that most of us who get a check, you know, the company takes out Social Security, takes out state income tax, takes out federal income tax. If you're on an insurance plan, takes out the insurance, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe you're not so happy with the check that's left over, but at least at the end of the year when it comes time to file taxes,
You're legal.
you do not have to somehow go back and do all the calculations, pay at that moment all the money, either on a quarterly or you know, whatever basis. And so this is a incredible burden to put on truck drivers, home health care workers, restaurant workers, Uber drivers,
Oh,
and all the rest.
limo drivers.
And all the rest who, as we have noted, get hired to do a job, get employed to do a job, have to fulfill all the boss's requirements to do the job, but then are called an independent contractor.
Exactly. And many of them, and this is what I found out in doing this and working through this, is that many of them go underground because they are not able to meet that tax burden, and they work on the side, which is not a solution to this problem. The problem is that we need to make sure that the taxes are coming out appropriately, and that these are not they're not misclassified in that manner. And you know, one of the things that touched me, and I want to go back with the port drivers, is that when they pick up that load off that dock, however that load is their load. If there is a damage done to that, they are responsible, and it will be taken out of their checks. If there's a flat on that attachment, not their truck, but the truck that the attachment, the rig, I guess. The container,
Mm-hmm.
then they're responsible for paying for that, even though it's not their property. You know, so these employers are exploiting the employees by the time they get their check, it's $5 an hour, $4 an hour. And it's really senseless. And I am just so excited that the lawmakers have come to the forefront, and they understand that this is an ongoing problem, and it's a mistreating of employees. But it's also it's gypping the folks of Georgia out of the taxes that they should be getting from these employers by doing this. And it's the funding. They're always talking about they're low on funding. This is a way to help get some of this funding back. You know, it's not asking them to do anything that's illegal. It's asking them to do the legal thing.
Well, I guess I want to make two comments there. I mean, I think the fact that government figures out ways to rob the public, and
Yes.
certainly corporations, as we've just discussed with the TPP and so many other things, have developed so many ways to rip off, and I'll use the word again, just plain out steal money that legally belongs to the worker. And that's not even talking about just starting with low wages and lousy benefits to begin with as part of profit making. So let's talk a little bit about, are there other states, or do we have some other models where this is being addressed? Because the three stories that we did at the beginning of the program, one was in Bangladesh, where where people can be a contract worker for 20 years, never get hired on full time. So no benefits for 20 years and low pay. The second story was about the auto plants who are used, and auto in general. That is the big issue in the UAW contract negotiations, is that Chrysler, Ford, and GM have two tiers. They have these low-wage workers many times who never really get the so-called permanent job. And then our last story about this very popular Italian restaurant chain ripping off in just 2 years $330,000
Yeah.
of pay to restaurant workers who are some of the lowest paid exploited workers there can be. And the ones they thought were so powerless that they could get away with it.
See, this is a national issue. It's not just a Georgia issue. And many states have addressed it. Texas.
Texas.
Texas. It's not a very strong law, but it's there.
Okay.
And New York, and California, and I don't like to use New York and California when I'm in Georgia because they say that's not us, but we have other states that are starting to address this, and at the AFL-CIO I get calls every day saying, what are you guys doing? We want to do something because this is important, and even to the point that there have been grants set up for states who want to implement a program to be a watchdog over this. And that's one of the things that we brought to the state of Georgia to say, look, you can get money to set this up, to help get this your computer system set up and how to watch this. And we really fought to get this, to just get one little button on the website that says, am I misclassified, or how to report if you are misclassified. But one of the challenges that we're having all around is the whistleblower piece. Because if I am a misclassified worker, and I've been working misclassification jobs all this time, and I blow the whistle, I'm not going to get hired again. And so we are pushing to get that piece added to the laws that we want to get implemented here, is that there's some way that workers are protected. We finally got a way that workers can even find out if they're misclassified before they're terminated. So now we want to look at making sure that they're protected. We never want people to step out there and don't have anything to fall back on. But we will keep encouraging the state to try to get some of this money that the federal government has, and we keep working with a couple of organizations that let us know, okay, there's money, you can go get them. And it's free money. It's free money that the state doesn't have to pay back. So it's important that we get that, and that we get the whistleblower piece. That's the big piece about this.
Yeah, and again, then the story about Antico, the fact that the agreement included that this company now cannot retaliate against any worker who files a complaint again in the next 5 years. And certainly this issue of the threat of deportation is a critical piece of all of it, because that's the lever, that's the club over the head of so many workers.
Yes, and I applaud our Georgia state legislators who saw fit to go to the Department of Labor and say, we need a piece that we can report. And it was just one little piece on the website, but we continue to try to work across the table, the Senate, the House, and Democrats and Republicans, because this is a worker issue. It's not a labor union issue. It's not a Democratic issue. It's not a Republican issue. It's a worker. It's a family issue. It really is a family issue, because if people go to work every day, these are people that want to work, who want to work hard, but if they can't bring home a living wage, a wage that they can feed their folks, their kids, and make sure that they go to school with clean clothes on and decent clothes, they're not asking for $1 million. They're not asking for $1 trillion. They're not asking for a CEO's salary in a year. They just want what is due to them. They have to maintain any equipment that they have. I mean, if you're a home care worker, you have to have a stethoscope, you have to have blood pressure cuff, you have to have all those kind of things. IATSE, oh my God, they have to have so many other things that they have to have.
Well, and all your construction trade workers?
The good thing
truck
about
drivers?
construction trade workers is there is a law that helps them if there's federal money involved.
Right.
There's the Davis-Bacon, but nobody else is, everybody's okay. And it's just like when we started off with a few part-time workers, or temporary workers, and now that's all people use. And it takes away from the economy. It's not just the economy. If we don't feed back into the economy, who supports the economy? The worker. So it's a vicious circle, and if we can start cutting that circle off somewhere, we can go down a straight line and it can go up.
So, did you have a question, Paul?
Yeah, I had a question, Yvonne, about the job entry piece in particular. How that works in terms of what would happen to a construction worker or a home care worker if they have an entry on the job and they're an independent contractor.
They're required to handle that on their own. I mean, they'd have to go, if they have health insurance, you know, they'll have to use their own personal health insurance. They lose days at work. They don't have any sick leave. They don't get paid. They, you know, it's even if it's not their fault, of any fault of their own. They're independent worker, contractor. So many of them pay for workers' comp on their own. The truck drivers do, I'll say that. The home care workers don't. They don't make enough to even think about even paying somebody to do their taxes the correct way. And a lot of them get in trouble because of that. You know, because it's something the employer should be doing.
The other question I had when you were saying this is a national problem, I'm just going to assume it's worse in the South. Is that true?
No, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say that the South is slower addressing the problem, but there are many states in the South that are starting to address the problem. There is, you know, everybody knows it's that the AFL-CIO are saying let's grow the South because people are moving businesses here because they can get away with stuff, with violating the laws. And we want to do the right thing here in Georgia, I hope.
So Yvonne, thank you so much for bringing all this information. If there's a listener who thinks that they are misclassified, what should they do right now?
They should go on the Department of Labor's website, and I don't know the name, the DOL, and they should go over, and it should be in the right-hand corner, and they can click and put the information in and see if they're misclassified. And that's new to the website, so that's something that we were able to accomplish this year.
Thank you so much. So there are going to be 2 hearings here in Atlanta, and we will bring back the progress that was made at those 2 hearings. And certainly if there's legislation this coming session, we will let all of you know about when to let your legislators know that you support that.
And we got the website.
Okay.
It's dol.georgia.gov.
Thank you so much. So we have, I want to thank Christopher and Ozzy for being part of the Labor Forum team. I want to thank all our guests today, starting first with Yvonne Robinson from the state AFL-CIO, and prior to that, Melinda St. Louis from Public Citizen and Neil Sardana from Atlanta Jobs with Justice, who talked about the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and the demonstration and actions that will be taking place here in Atlanta Wednesday and Thursday this week. We'll be back again next Monday. Hope we hear and see from you then. See you then. Bye-bye.